Hello everybody, we are back here on the Hunter Call of the Wild. Today we are going to be joined by Lady Legend for a ultimate grinding guide that can be used for literally anybody that wants to start a grinding Call of the Wild. Doesn't matter if it's herd management or just a normal grind, you can use these tips to help your grind go smoother. Be sure to go subscribe to Lady if you haven't already and check out her channel. If I can remember, I will leave a link in the description or the comments, so go ahead and give her a sub. And yeah. Leave a comment down below if you guys want to see more stuff like this, because we definitely want to do some more things in the future. But let's go ahead and jump into the actual guide.
Okay, so today we're going to be going over everything you need to know to set up the ultimate grind. I am here with Scarecrow today, and we're going to be going over basically everything that you need to know to set up the perfect grind. We're going to go over the most frequently asked questions that I get about grinds.
And this type of stuff can be done with literally any type of grind you want to do. You could do this with a herd management grind. You can do it with just any type of grind you want. Just shooting everything. Herd management, just really whatever type of style you like. These tips will help you maximize your success and reliability with your grind.
So yeah, so it'll work for any grind, with or without herd management. It does not matter.
So today, with this video, we are going to be talking about a number of topics, including how to not get burnt out, what a grind is, how to find your zones, how to pick out your consistent zones, proper tent setup, tripods, and how important they can be to a grind, how to not lose your zones, and how to get your respawns, including a little bit of a talk towards the end about different playstyles and how you can go about playing differently than other people while also still respecting them. Now, let's get into it.
Okay, so the first thing when you are starting a grind that you need to do is find all of your drink zones.
And there's honestly a lot of different ways that you can do so, and we're going to kind of talk about different ways that you can go about finding all your zones and making sure that you're not missing any.
When you're starting any grind, you want to find as many drink zones as you possibly can. Now, what this is actually going to do is it's going to cause you to get more consistent respawns. It is possible to get a great one without finding all of your drink zones, but in my personal experience, it's just going to go so much smoother when you have all of the drink zones discovered first. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. I've always told people that you don't need all your zones, and I've done a few grinds where I didn't find all my zones and got a great one, but it definitely helps to know what's on your map in each of your zones, and that way, if something moves around, you'll know where to look and know if you'll find a new one or if it's an old one.
Now, setting up for a grind is a very big job. It actually is hard for us to show exactly how much work it is in a video, because it takes many, many hours.
I've definitely had my fair share of grinds that took over 100 hours to fully get all the zones set up and find all the zones and figure out what I'm going to be doing with them. And then there's been some that have taken less than half the time. It really depends from one grind to another and how your map ends up getting set up with your zones.
So very much depends on the map that you're, like New England, that's going to take you way longer to set up a grind than say Layton, where you have the animals condensed to half the map. I'm talking about whitetail here.
There's a lot of different species in the game, and all of them have different amounts of that species. It seems that sometimes even different maps have different amount of a species, and depending on the species you're hunting and the map you're hunting, it may take you longer to find all your zones, or you might get lucky and find them all pretty quickly.
But I think it's a good idea to set up, as you're finding your zones, to drop a tent or a tripod, something to mark where your best zones are as you're going through.
And alternatively, if you'd like to have a visual representation of what all your zones are, something I like to do is take a screenshot of the map and just use a program like Photoshop or one of the many different free alternatives to put little dots wherever the zones are and color code them based on whether it's a good zone, a bad zone, all does, or just really whatever you want to do there to help you out.
Okay, let's talk about how to pick your main shooting lakes. You don't want to be grinding every single zone that you find. That is definitely going to drive you crazy. That is not necessary.
It's one of those things where it's a lot more beneficial to kind of pick out between 10 and 15 zones that you really like, that are either in really good areas that you like hunting, super open areas, or just zones that are very, very consistent with always having animals there for you to shoot.
It's really just personal preference.
100%. It's one of those things where you don't necessarily have to do it, but it definitely can be beneficial to pick out 10 to 15 zones and just hunt those, because I've always found it to be a lot faster and a lot more fun to just pick out the most enjoyable and best zones to hunt, but it's definitely not something that is required either.
So once you have picked out which zones you want to be your main shooting lakes, then you want to set up with your tents and tripods, and there is definitely guidelines for how to do this properly. Now, I would recommend dropping your tents 250 to 300 meters away from the zone so that the deer render in properly and you don't spook them when you fast travel.
Alternatively, there's also the option if you happen to have two zones that are maybe across the lake from each other, about 200 to 300, to where you could put two tents on top of the two zones. Let's say you have two zones that are across from each other. You could put a tent on each of them, and when you're at the first tent, you can shoot the zone across, and when you fast travel over to claim it, you can shoot the ones that are on the other side. So there is a couple different ways you can do it depending on what your zones are like.
And they won't render in until you actually move from on top of that zone, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that's my go-to for a lot of zones. Just being able to hunt the lake without spooking the ones that aren't rendered in. In some cases, that can be pretty huge. Ooh, that is a good buck there. There is some good deer over in these zones.
Now with tripods, I like to put my tripods about 175 meters away so that I can run straight into them without spooking the animals off and start shooting immediately, because time is definitely of the essence. You want it to be as fast as you possibly can.
Yeah, being able to just quickly get to the zone, get in your tripod, take the animals down, and be on your way to claim them, it can definitely be a huge difference in just the amount of animals that you can kill within the time that you're playing. There's a lot of times where I find it to be a lot more, kind of like a waste of time if you have a tripod really far away from your tent, or maybe you have to go around an entire lake just to get there. Definitely a lot of things to consider in terms of placement of the tents and the tripods.
And we should mention that no two maps are the same. We are all going to have different maps in different zone locations. I mean, they will be similar, but they're not going to be exactly the same. These whitetail are completely bugged out.
Oh, no.
How you doing,
okay.
my buddy? Would you like a bullet? Here you go. And splat. He dead.
So next up, we're going to kind of talk about how you can make sure that you don't end up losing your zones. Because in Call of the Wild, you actually can delete a zone after you found it. And if you've got a really good zone, the last thing you want to do is lose it. So we've got a few different tips to kind of help you guys not lose your zones. And also, there's at least 3 different ways that a zone can disappear. So we're going to go over all of those.
Okay, so the first thing is you want to be hunting from any hunting structure so that you get reduced hunting pressure. When you shoot from a tripod or any hunting structure at all, you can shoot 15 animals, and the 16th kill will delete that zone. What does that mean? That means the zone will no longer be in that spot, and it will move somewhere else on the map. It could be close, it could be far away, but once you delete it, you have to go and re-find it, which is not fun.
It's definitely not. The amount of times where I've deleted a good zone, and it's just crushing to lose that good zone, because you never know where it could go. Like you said, it could literally be across the map, and if you want to go find that same herd, you got to search around until you find where their zone moved, and nobody really wants to be doing that when you could just be hunting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a colossal waste of time, and it's very frustrating.
And so like we said, there's a few different ways that you can lose your zones. The main one is with hunting pressure. If you're not using a stand and you shoot 4 animals over top of the same zone, it will essentially delete any zones that are within that ring of hunting pressure, kind of like we see over here. Whenever it gets to like the really pink stage where you've killed 4 animals, it will delete anything within this vicinity of the hunting pressure.
Also, when you are grinding or farming at any zone, you want to be very careful that you don't leave just one animal in that zone. If you leave a doe in a zone and you shoot everything else, that zone will never get respawns again. With every need zone, you're going to have a need zone indicator. And we can actually find our zones just by discovering this need zone indicator. You don't actually need to spot animals to get the zone. But this will also tell you when you have separate herds within one zone. And we actually need to be treating that zone differently if there are multiple herds. And the reason is, it's very easy to shoot a zone down to one animal when you have separate herds within one zone.
It can be quite a tragic thing when you have a zone of 6 deer and you think that it's just one herd, and You go to shoot 3 of them because you think there's 6 there, and you walk up and you shot all 3 from one of the 2 herds that were using the zone. So you definitely want to make sure that it is just one herd and verify it through these need zone indicators, because if you see 6 animals in a zone and you go up and it says 3, that's definitely an indication that there's more than one herd using it.
And if you shoot every animal out of any zone, that zone will delete, and you will have to refind it. I get viewers asking me all the time, why are they not getting their respawns? Now, there can be various reasons for this.
And to be honest, a lot of them can be figured out with just a simple look around your map.
Oftentimes, we don't have all of the zones, all of our zones found. We think we do, but we actually don't.
And sometimes there's even situations where you may have found the majority of your zones, and as you started hunting them, some of those respawns decided to create a brand new zone and form a new herd.
If you are not getting respawns, the first thing I would recommend is having another look around your map and make sure that you aren't missing drink zones, because that can definitely mess with getting consistent respawns.
And even if you think you may have found all your zones, there's always a chance that you may have missed a few, or some new ones may have shown up. So it's definitely vital to go and search your map multiple times throughout the course of a grind, no matter what type of way you are grinding.
And I find that need zones come out in stages. Like the first time you go and you check a lake for zones, you will find a certain amount of zones. But if you actually go back and recheck that lake on say a separate game startup, there is definitely the possibility of finding more zones there, because they just don't all come out at the same time, I find. Do you find that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've noticed that one thing that I like to do to ensure that I find all my zones is I'll go through an area once and then reset the time and go back through the same area in the opposite direction, so I'm hitting the last zones first on the second run through, and you know, vice versa. That way you make sure you're covering every bit of ground at different times to give every herd time to get there.
Oh, that's a good idea. Why are these deer 90 meters away and they're completely calm?
What
is up with that?
Multiplayer problems. To be honest, though, I have found that whitetail are probably one of the dumbest animals in the game the last, like, 3 or 4 updates. I swear I can get so close to them. Hello? There they go. You see, this is how you get to no scope great ones. You wait for a herd like this, and then you run at them.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. What is she doing? She doesn't even care. Okay, she's gone now. What? That last doe took like a solid 10 seconds after the rest ran just to think, should I be running? Is this guy bad? I don't know.
She had a death wish.
She did. She was just standing there. What are these deer doing?
Drinking. They're very, very thirsty.
I am so close to this doe, and she does not care. I mean, I could run up and just snap a little pic. Thank you for that. Appreciate the picture. Oh my gosh. Oh, he does not care at all either.
No, he says now
hey,
he's
buddy.
fleeing.
Wow, what is wrong with my whitetail?
He was okay with you giving him a little pet.
He was. He gave me time to pull out the med kit and prepare for when he hit me and ran away. So one trick that you guys can do if a zone just doesn't have its animals for some odd reason, this is a tip that I really don't think a lot of people use besides like some content creators like myself and Lady. We each have our own way of doing this. What I like to do, if I get to a zone, like one of my main grinding zones, and the animals are just not there, what I can do, and I usually do this in every time that this happens, is I will set the time back a few minutes, or maybe set it back to the beginning of the hour, and 9 times out of 10, that will force those animals into their zone. And it may take a couple tries, but eventually they will just appear in their zone in front of you. And if all you care about is time, and you don't really care as much about the amount of money you're spending on time resets, it can be very beneficial to speed up your grind.
It will definitely speed up your grind, and it will be expensive. It will cost you. But for me, it's worth it. I would rather spend the money and get the animals into those zones. Now, one thing that I do is I put the time forward by 1 minute. I've been doing this on my lion grind, and it has been getting those lions out really, really quickly. But it is very expensive.
So it's definitely a more situational thing. If you've got a little bit of money, like a few $100,000 or more, then this is probably something that you could try out and have pretty good success at getting the animals if you just care about speed. But if you're low on cash, I don't recommend doing this all the time, but you could still do it every once in a while just to get a quick little boost in the amount of animals that are in their zones.
If you don't want to spend money, guys, just go from one zone, go to your zone. If nothing is there, go to the next zone. If nothing is there, just keep going back and checking, and they should eventually come in. Now, one thing you want to be very careful of when you are doing a grind, guys, is that you don't burn yourself out. And one way to do that is to balance your grinds with other forms of hunting. If you feel like you are not having fun anymore, there is no point in doing it. This is supposed to be fun. So what I would do is just go and shoot some stuff on another map. Go to Silver Ridge Peaks, shoot some muleys, whatever. Just get off the map and break up the grind.
And if it ever gets to the point where going to other grinds and hunting other stuff or hunting in different ways doesn't help with the burnout, it's okay to take a break from the game for a day or two and go play something else and then come back and try it again to see if you are enjoying it again. It's not wrong to not want to play the game for a day or two. Just remember that it's good to not burn yourself out. It's good not to overdo it, and make sure that you, like Lady was saying, balance things out with other styles of hunting if you get tired of grinding, or go to another game for a day or two and come back.
If you don't like grinding, there's nothing that says you have to do a grind. Like, it's okay to play the way you enjoy playing. As long as you're having fun, that is the basic purpose of this game.
Because at the end of the day, video games are supposed to be fun, and I know for a lot of people it's their escape from real life, and it can really help relieve stress and just bring you lots of enjoyment, and also help you meet new people or have funs with some of the people that you already know.
So those are some of our best tips, guys. If you do have questions about grinds, definitely leave them in the comments below. But at the end of the day, your grind is supposed to be fun, and it definitely can lead to some pretty awesome trophies. But you want to always remember to play the way that you want to play and be respectful of other people. If they're having fun doing what they're doing, it really doesn't affect you at the end of the day. Do what you enjoy. Would you agree, Scarecrow?
100%. I feel like the most important thing in any video game, and especially Call of the Wild, since we are talking about that right now, is just to make sure that you are having fun and that you are playing the way that you want to play, that you're enjoying yourself, and above all, just be respectful to other people that choose to play differently. There's a lot of people that play in a lot of different ways, and there really is no wrong way at the end of the day. As long as you're not actually downloading cheats and passing it off as normal trophies, then there's really not going to be anything wrong with playing the way that you enjoy.
I totally agree with you.
Well, guys, that is going to be the end of this video. This is actually being recorded after the recording with Lady, so I just finished editing this video. I might have missed a couple of the things that we talked about in there just because of going through a 2-hour recording of footage, trying to pick out where we were actually talking about things. I made the great mistake of not, cutting it whenever we got done talking about a topic. It would have probably been easier, but I just recorded the whole thing, so apologies if I missed one thing. If I did, you guys will probably see it in Lady's video, so I guess at the end of the day, the tips will still get out there. But thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't, be sure to go check out Lady's channel. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this channel as well. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace!